It's strange, the things you learn when your child is facing death row. I never thought I'd be sitting with attorneys, hearing words like aggravated murder or capital punishment. But that's where we are. Tyler's charged with aggravated murder. In Utah, that means the killing was planned. Premeditated. Prosecutors say he didn't just pull a trigger. They say he chose his target because of what Charlie Kirk believed, because of what he said. That makes it worse under the law. It's called a victim targeting enhancement, political motive, turned murder into a hate crime. Then there are the other charges: felony discharge of a firearm causing serious injury, obstruction of justice, witness tampering, committing a violent offense in the presence of a child. That last one, there were kids in the crowd that day. My son fired a high-powered rifle into a public space, a space where children were listening, watching. The law doesn't forgive that, and neither will the jury. That's why they're seeking the death penalty. They say Tyler planned it, that he scoped the scene a week before, that he engraved the bullets, that he confessed, that he hid the rifle, that he asked someone to delete the messages. And those messages, they're damning. He wrote about fingerprints, about not wanting me to know he lost the gun. But all of it, the texts, the towel, the DNA on the trigger, it paints a picture of intent. And in a capital case, that's what matters. To sentence someone to die, the state must prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. That he meant to do it, that he chose to do it, and that there was no justification. His defense might argue mental health. They might say he believed he was stopping hate, that he was vulnerable, manipulated, unstable. But the prosecution has all the ingredients they need: motive, opportunity, planning, confession. And then there's the law itself. In Utah, the death penalty is still on the table. And if lethal injection isn't possible, they can use a firing squad. I gave him that rifle. God help me. I never thought it might be the last thing he sees pointed back at him. Some parts of this trial are going to test the system. Can political ideology be a legal motive? Can hate speech lead to hate crime? The defense might argue free speech, that what Charlie Kirk said incited anger. But speech doesn't justify murder. And my question, show me Grandpa's rifle. It's now part of the record. My words helped link the gun to the crime. They might call me as a witness. My son's life, my testimony, the same sentence. You raise a child in your home, around your values, your beliefs, and then one day they don't believe in any of it. Tyler changed over the past year. He started talking about things we'd never talked about in our house. Supporting trans rights, defending people I didn't understand. He said he couldn't sit quiet anymore. Said people like Charlie Kirk were spreading hate. That they weren't just wrong, they were dangerous. He told someone, I've had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. And maybe that's what he believed. Maybe he thought he was making a point, but you don't stop hate with a rifle. He never told me how far it had gone, but looking back, I can see the signs. The way he planned it, the week he spent preparing, changing clothes, wiping prints, hiding the gun under brush. All of it says he knew it was wrong. But then there was the panic, the silence, the calls to his partner, the confession, and that one line that breaks me every time: I'd rather die than go to jail. That's not a stable mind. That's someone drowning in their own decisions. I thought he was going to take his own life. And then there's us. His mother and I didn't see eye to eye politically, but when it came to Tyler, we tried. He had a partner, a trans partner, and I didn't always understand that relationship. But it mattered to him, maybe more than I realized. And then the rifle, a gift from his grandfather, a part of our family. When he said in a message, how the fuck do I explain losing it to my old man? I knew that gun wasn't just a weapon to him, it was memory, heritage. And he used it to tear someone else's family apart. But this isn't just about us. This is about something bigger happening in this country. People aren't just disagreeing anymore, they're dehumanizing. Political conversations turn to echo chambers. Memes become manifestos, opinions become targets. And somewhere in that noise, Tyler lost his way. There were engravings on the bullets, internet slogans, messages from a world he was buried in online. A world none of us saw. But now, we all see the result. They said the bullet went through Charlie Kirk's neck. The shot was instant, lethal. He fell in front of a crowd, people screamed. It wasn't just a murder, it was a public assassination. Someone recorded the moment. You can hear the panic, the silence just after the shot. and then the chaos. That was my son's doing. At the first court appearance, Tyler didn't say much. He was held without bail. The judge issued a protective order for Charlie's widow. The prosecution announced they'd seek the death penalty. I watched it on the news, and all I could think was, that's my son in that jumpsuit. But what he did, that's someone I don't recognize. But I remember the moment it all started. My wife, Tyler's mom, was the one who saw the news photo first. She stared at it, quiet. Then she turned to me and said, "Matt, doesn't that look like our boy?" My chest went cold. And then I saw the rifle. Grandpa's rifle. That's when I asked it, the question I can't take back. "Show me Grandpa's rifle." That was the moment everything shattered. And then the texts. Tyler messaged his partner after the shooting, confessing. "I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I'm sorry to involve you." He wasn't bragging. He sounded scared, like a kid who'd built a monster he couldn't unmake. But then came the things that chilled me to my core. They found the bullets, engraved, cartridges with inscriptions, words he carved in, messages from the internet, from politics, from anger. DNA was everywhere, on the towel he wrapped the gun in, on the trigger, on the fired shells, even the ones he never got to use. He told someone he'd planned it for a bit over a week. This wasn't a breakdown. It was a plan. And that gun, the one I passed down through our family, a thing that once meant tradition, responsibility, history, he turned it into something else. He turned our legacy into a headline, into a weapon of hate. After the shock comes the process. Tyler's been appearing in court virtually. His next hearing's already on the schedule. He's being held without bail, and we know exactly why. Because he planned it. Because he confessed. Because he's dangerous. The court will have to decide whether Tyler lives or dies. If he's convicted of aggravated murder, Utah law allows for the death penalty. And if lethal injection isn't available, there's a chance they'll use a firing squad. The irony's unbearable. The very thing he used could be what ends his life. The defense will try to argue, maybe they'll say it was his mental health, that he wasn't stable, that he wasn't thinking clearly. They might say he was pushed by ideology, radicalized by what he saw online, that he believed violence could stop hate. They'll look at his texts, try to frame them as panic, not planning. Maybe they'll try to suppress the messages, or challenge the DNA, the towel, the gun, the shells, say the chain of custody's flawed, but the evidence is overwhelming. And then there's what I said, "Show me Grandpa's rifle." That one line may be admissible as an implied confession. My words, part of the legal record. The state says this wasn't just murder. They say it was political targeting. That Tyler chose Charlie Kirk because of what he said, because of his political speech. That makes it more than a crime. It makes it a message. And the law is going to answer that message. Tyler also faces other charges: obstruction of justice, witness tampering, firing a weapon in a public space with children present. Even without the murder charge, he'd be looking at decades in prison. But that's not what keeps me up at night. What keeps me up is knowing this is just the beginning. For us, for the victims, for the country, there's a burden no parent wants to carry. The suspicion that their own child is capable of something unthinkable. And then the crushing reality that it might be true. I ask myself every day, how did we get here? What drove Tyler to cross that line? Was it the voices in his head? The endless shouting matches online, the echo chambers that twist reality, the hate that feels like the only truth. How do you fight an enemy you can't even see? When speech becomes weaponized and silence feels complicit, the danger isn't just in the act itself. It's in the world that breeds that act. The fractured, polarized society where someone feels violence is the only answer. What can stop the next tragedy? Better mental health support, yes, but also a reckoning with how we talk to one another, how we protect those who stand in the public eye, and how we prepare law enforcement to respond when lines are crossed. I don't have the answers, but I know this. The cost of ignoring these questions is a cost none of us can afford to pay. Tyler Robinson's father didn't just witness history. In an ironic twist, his recognition of a rifle pulled the thread that unraveled a murder plot. The heirloom rifle, once a symbol of family legacy, a gift passed down, became the instrument of crime, the undeniable evidence of guilt, and the pivot upon which this case turns. Now, we want to hear from you. Should ideological belief ever be treated as an aggravating factor in murder cases? Or does that risk chilling free speech? What role should family members play when they suspect someone close to them is planning violence? And finally, is the death penalty, including the firing squad, ever justified, especially in politically or ideologically charged killings? These are difficult questions, but they deserve our careful thought. Because in this case, and in many others, the intersections of politics, mental health, family, and law are all deeply entwined. Thank you for watching. If you found this case chilling or thought-provoking, please subscribe for more deep dives into true crime and justice. Drop a comment below. Was the father right to press his son? And what should justice look like here? Share this video if you believe this story needs more attention.